When we arrived in Selma, we were met in Selma. I believe the sheriff's name was Clark. He was known for being a brutal and vicious kind of person. We were told that we should not have sharpened pencils with us because that would be counted as a deadly weapon. And when we got off of that bus, I could see his face to this day. As we were walking down the aisle of the bus and walking down the steps, he was at the bottom of the steps, and he was just looking, just glaring at us. And there were other white people around, and it was a scary situation. But the SNCC workers were there. They were able to kind of shuffle us off and got us to the homes of some of the people in Selma, like the black people in those little enclaves.
Thanks for clicking through. This is the second episode of a three-parter, and it's about the judge, Clyde W. Waite. In the last episode, we saw how a kid from McKeesport hustled his way to Howard University. Now on this side, two big things happened. One, in 1968, the death of Martin Luther King Jr. And secondly, affirmative action. You'll see how these two big events change his life forever. This is On the Q-Tip, and I'm your host, Q.
There were about 5 or 6 of us were going out to Lowndes County. The SNCC office was directly across the street from the police station in the center of Selma. And they deliberately put their office there so that the police could not say that they didn't know if the SNCC workers were being attacked. So they had their office there. So we would stay at the SNCC office when we were going to go out. We would leave before sunup. And we had a pickup truck, 4 of us in the cab, and I was in the back of the pickup truck in a sleeping bag with the bag zipped up to my neck. The state troopers chased us and ran us off the road. The truck slid down an embankment towards a swamp, and it flipped over, and I was under the truck, and it slid down the embankment into the water. The troopers came down and they arrested the males that were in the cab of the truck, and there were a couple of women in there, and they didn't arrest them, but they arrested the 2 males for defacing the highways. They didn't know that I was under the truck. I could see their boots. There was enough distance where I had an airspace between the swamp water and the bed of the truck. And I just stayed there until they left. But we got a farmer, one of the black farmers, to come down the road with his tractor, flipped the truck back over and pulled it up back onto the highway. And so I was driving this truck. I had a driver's license. I knew how to drive a car. I did not know how to drive a stick shift. And anyone who knows how to drive a stick shift, if you can get it moving, then you're driving like it's an automatic. So I was able to get it moving enough. The wheels had been bent, so the truck was bumping along. The rims were bent, but we were going back into Selma. I was able to get it into the city, but right on the outskirts was an elementary school, and there was a crossing guard with her back to me, and there were several little white children crossing the street. And as I was approaching, I hit the clutch thinking I was hitting the brake, and the truck wouldn't stop. And I panicked. I didn't know what. So I put both feet down trying to stop with the brakes. And fortunately, one foot was on the clutch and the other foot was on the brake. And fortunately, it stopped, and it slid to a stop right behind the crossing guard. And there were a couple of little white children going across the road. And I saw my life passing in front of my eyes. So that was just one of several close calls while I was there. There was another close call when we went out. We went back to out to Lowndes, and we went at night this time. We were in this farmhouse talking to some people who had come in. We were trying to explain to them about the voting rights law and how they had the right to vote. And then there was a couple of cars started coming up the driveway, the headlights, people who were not invited. And the farmer had a shotgun. He had one shell, but he had the shotgun, and he took it out. We thought, again, it's over. They were other people from the Black community coming to speak to us. I said, so those were the kinds of things, those were the two incidents that were really enough to let me know that what I was doing there was both necessary, important, but very dangerous. And Schwerner and Goodman were killed during that time. They wanted to do something about their situation, but they also knew that if they registered to vote, they would not be able to get the credit at the feed store to plant their crops. These were farmers, and the money that they would get would be from selling their vegetables and whatever else. But they needed to have credit to get to buy the seeds to plant the crops. And if they registered to vote, they would not be able to get that credit at the feed store. They weren't anxious to risk, and I didn't blame them. I didn't blame them one bit for what I went through, and just being there that short time, and they living there every day. I don't know what I would have done. And I think, some of us, we can be altruistic and we want to do the right thing. But there are realities that have to be taken into account. And I did not blame any. A few of them did, I think, register, but not a whole lot, not too many. So, and I didn't blame them. And as a matter of fact, there was this town hall, and I remember those spiral staircases going up to the city hall, and that's where you would go to register to vote. And they had one of those big jars of jelly beans that you would have to, as one of the qualifications to vote, you had to accurately tell how many jelly beans were in this jar. And I said, man, get me out of here. So, but those were some of the bravest, some of the most resilient people I think I've ever met. And the education that I got by going there, I kind of felt guilty. I got more out of them than they got out of me. But that's all you could do. So when I got back to Howard, I got back as a very sober student who wanted to learn and wanted to be able to do something for my community where I could help without dying in the process.
Did you know what you wanted to do next? Were you planning?
I always had my 1 year plan, my 5 year plan, my 10 year plan. I was a planner. I, quite frankly, wanted to go into the sciences. I saw myself as this lonely character in a lab somewhere looking in a microscope at something, but the fact was that most of my courses that I could handle were more the social sciences as opposed to the hard sciences. So then I started thinking perhaps law school might be a place that I could go because I couldn't go anywhere else. It was not something that was a burning desire to be a lawyer. It just was that I had to be strategic. I decided that I was going to go to law school. I applied to a number of law schools, including Yale, never expecting to get in. But at this point, we're in 1968. Martin Luther King was assassinated. I had already applied to Yale. I received a waitlist letter. I wasn't rejected, but I was not accepted either. Shortly after, within, I would say, 10 days of Martin Luther King's assassination, I got an acceptance letter at Yale Law School. So I knew that acceptance letter was as a result of the assassination of Martin Luther King. So I show up at Yale with 11 other black students. We hit the law school and we were immediately confronted with us being labeled as the Dirty Dozen. The Dirty Dozen, before they knew anything about us. Lewis Pollock, who was the dean of the Yale Law School, decided that he was going to initiate an affirmative action program to increase the number of minority students. We were the first affirmative action admittees at the elite law schools nationwide, the first group. I did well there. I did just fine. And frankly, everybody else, all the other black students, the 12 of us, did fine. But we encountered a lot of resistance. And it wasn't just from the other students, but from faculty as well. We created the Black Law Students Union. We demanded and got a meeting room where we would go to after classes and we could support one another. We all did quite well. We have several judges. We have leading legislators. My moot court partner was elected to Congress, Congressman Mel Watt from North Carolina, who also became the director of FHA. He has a lot of credentials behind his name. We felt like we were under surveillance, but there were just by a few. I'd say most of the students were okay with us, but there were just some that felt that we were taking up space, valuable space that should be reserved for more deserving individuals. Well, the other students reacted to us initially with curiosity, I guess, a willingness to learn about us and to interact with us. But there were some who were not offended by our presence, but annoyed that maybe they had a friend that didn't get in, and it may be that the 12 of us might have, if we weren't there, it might have given one of their friends a better chance of being there, someone who was more deserving. But generally speaking, we got along well. We were adult enough that we could handle those kinds of feelings and work through them. So the 12 of us sitting together, it was more self-protection, I would say, and our interests were closer. We came in as a group and we stayed together. The Yales and the Harvards and Stanfords and places like that attract more of the individual who would want to be elected to something and would want to get the name behind them, Yale or Harvard, because that's going to help them get elected. And this particular person, and his name is Bill Clinton, he came and sat with us at our black table when none of the other white students would. Now, whether there was any ulterior motives, I can't say. But what I can say is that he became good friends with all of us.
Did it surprise you? Were you taken off guard?
At first it did. I mean, we're sitting there and it was like he entered talking. I mean, we're engaged in discussion. He just sat down. He was, it was like he started the conversation. He was personable. He was a popular individual in the law school. He was a decent human being. And I believe when he got there from day one, he was in the process of running for governor of Arkansas. And in fact, became governor of Arkansas and more. So he was the first of the white students to sit at the black table. There may have been a couple others who would flit around here and there, but Bill Clinton would come and sit, and he made himself right at home, and he kind of felt like he was at home, and the color dissolved out of the consideration because we all spoke the same language. We worked together very, very nicely. So he was a good guy. Very likable. So.
Did it surprise you? Were you taken off guard?
At first it did. I mean, we're sitting there and it was like he entered talking. I mean, we're engaged in discussion. He just sat down. He was, it was like he started the conversation. But really a good friend to us and probably most others at the law school, both him and Hillary. They were there together, and they were both very influential in the school.
Let's talk about when you graduated.
Well, when I graduated, I wanted to carry on with something that I started while I was still at Yale. I took a semester off to go to Bucks County to work on that. There was a project that was brought to my attention by one of the professors in labor. His name, by the way, was Clyde Summers. And he was aware of a case that was percolating in the lower courts that he felt was going to go to the Supreme Court, and it had to do with real estate zoning. So I took a semester off to come to Bucks County to work with the County Legal Aid Society, because one of the cases that was possibly going to the Supreme Court came out of Bucks County. So I came to work as a volunteer. And after graduation, I was offered a job in the general counsel's office of IBM. Nicholas Katzenbach was the attorney general in the Johnson administration, and he, when he came in, I think it was from IBM, and he went back to IBM, and he actually spent a time teaching at Yale. So I was offered that job, and being an altruist, I decided that I was going to be a volunteer at the Legal Aid Society rather than taking that high salary going to IBM. So that's what brought me to Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And it took me, I don't know how many decades before I was able to make as much as I was being offered to start at IBM. And they had dress codes and everyone had to wear a certain kind of tie and all that. And I wasn't that interested. And I didn't, at that point, need any money. So I was just going to go to Bucks. So I came to Bucks County, and I've been there ever since. So I got, as you know, elected judge there and got reelected for another term. But I was the first black attorney in that county, and I, to this day, am still the only black elected official on a countywide basis in Bucks County's history from its founding. And it was one of the early colonized areas. So there is that distinction that I'm not proud of it, but it's something that I'm happy that I was able to use enough people skills to get myself elected. But I couldn't get the realtors in Bucks County, in the central part of the county. And that's where the county seat is, that's where the courthouse is, and it's known as the capstone of Bucks County in that area. And I couldn't get any realtors to show me a house. And I found this little off real estate office with this one lady. It was in this, she was not part of the high end people. And so when those folks wouldn't show me a house, I went to this person, and she opened up her listing book and started talking and showed me a picture of this house, and I said, oh, okay, I'll take it. I mean, I know she was taken aback because I said, just full asking price, I don't even need to see it. And I didn't need to see it because I didn't really care about the house. I just needed a place to stay. So I got that house, and there were a lot of business things that occurred during all that time. I'll just mention one thing and pass by it. One of the realtors that didn't show me a house and didn't want to show me a house ended up working for me. And that was kind of sweet justice.
Years later?
Yes. Well, I became the solicitor for the Bucks County Industrial Development Authority. Realtor became the executive director of the authority, and he works for the board. The board directs him, and me as the attorney for the board, he answered to me. And he moved to be the executive director of the Bucks County Industrial Development Authority. So it was myself as the attorney for the authority, and the president of the board became one of my very close friends. As a matter of fact, his son is on television every day on Squawk Box. It was awkward.
Yes.
It was awkward. But we handled it. Just, it's, as they say, no harm, no foul. So everything worked out. But that little house that I bought, and that caused a stir in that community. And I was only there for maybe a year and a half, 2 years in that house.
What was your position at the time? What were you working as?
I was still working as a volunteer at the Legal Aid Society part-time, and the other half of the time I was in the public defender's office. So I made enough money in the public defender's office to buy a little house. And I, with all the things that I went through, I was very careful with money. Mel Watt and I rented a room at this bar. I mean, this is a business.
Well, explain the business.
We would have the Yaleys that we knew that wanted to have a place to go and have a drink. And that would be a place that they could go to, and that we would charge our part of getting them into this establishment. And that money was enough for us to build a little nest egg as we were working through our way through the law school. So when I finished, I had enough money. The housing at that time in the early 70s wasn't, this little house was not very expensive at all. But I was able to leverage that house to buy a second house after that year and a half to 2 that I stayed there. And that house was a duplex in a town called Soulbury. Soulbury, I don't know, I think I was the only black person there. And when I bought the house, there was a story on the front page of the local newspaper about a black lawyer moves into Soulbury. So my picture was in the... And I started a Democratic club in Soulbury, which caused a Democrat just moving into Soulbury was interesting. And one of the people who came into the club with me, Peter Kosmeyer, got himself elected to Congress out of Soulbury as a Democrat. Oh, I was flying. So I took that duplex and I then leveraged that to buy 35 acres of land in Wrightstown Township to build a community of people from my church. And we had this little hippie church, the community called it the Church of What's Happening Now, and it was for all the misfits that we all gathered at that church. So to allow for my 2 sons to grow up in a community that was welcoming, we built our own neighborhood. So I bought the ground, and we built 13 houses there, and we made our own community. We called it the Mega Family. And it's there today, thriving. And I used that house to leverage to start to put the infrastructure into an industrial park. So we built an industrial park that's there today.
If you enjoyed that episode, please like and subscribe. And don't forget, send it to a friend, hype the video, leave a comment. I like to check all the comments, respond as much as I can, and stay tuned for episode 3.